You mentioned in passing the SAVE Act, and this is something that I personally don't think is getting enough attention. I think if you are any type of minority group, but specifically if you are a woman, this should be near the forefront of your political thought. Can you briefly explain why the SAVE Act is such a diabolical piece of legislation? Because that's how I see it.
Yeah. So it would really put an incredible burden on women primarily to be able to vote. You've got to prove your citizenship. And the way to prove your citizenship is either you've got to have a passport, or you've got to have a state issued ID that matches the name on your birth certificate. About half of all Americans don't have a passport. So if you don't have a passport, then you've got to have an ID and a birth certificate, and the name on the birth certificate has to match the name on the ID. So if you're a woman who has gotten married and changed your name, or if you're anyone who's changed your name from your birth name for any reason, and your birth certificate still has your birth name and your current ID has a different name, then you're not going to be able to meet the requirement to be able to vote. To get a new birth certificate, to get those documents updated, I mean, that's an incredibly time-consuming process, and it is not something that can necessarily even be completed in time for the election. And if people don't know about this requirement and they just show up at the polls and they don't have the documents, they will be turned away and not able to vote if this law passes. The purpose is to disenfranchise people. It's to make it harder to exercise this constitutional right to vote, which just makes absolutely no sense. I mean, we should want it to be as easy as possible in this country to vote. I live in Washington, D.C., which we are disenfranchised in many ways here because we don't have a voting member of Congress or the Senate, but they do make it very easy to vote here. We get a mail-in ballot and we can fill it in advance, and we can drop it in a drop box in advance, or we can just show up at the polling place on the day of and you can certify that you are who you say you are. There's no requirements. If I had to go to the polling place and have my documents in order on the day of election, that would just come as a huge shock to me. It's not what I'm used to. And I know for a lot of people, it would make it impossible for them to be able to exercise their right to vote. But that seems to be exactly what Donald Trump is trying to do here.
It's amazing because the cost of doing that too, buying a passport, going to your whatever county clerk to get your birth certificate. There are people who cannot afford to buy a passport, right, especially in this age of increased cost. And so it seems between that, what the Supreme Court has ruled, all the things we're seeing, it is becoming you've got to pay to play in our democracy. Like, seriously.
Yeah, exactly.
I was going to say, Liz, real quick. Sorry to cut you off. My final question is there anything, because I get this question all the time, is there anything we can do, or do we just, we do the best we can and hope that our representatives do something? A lot of people feel helpless. I know you come on every day and you show us what's happening, and you do so in a great, concise manner. But it's a lot for people these days. I mean, is there any hope moving forward?
Yeah. So what I think is really important for everybody to think about is to think about just like taking it little bit by bit. We can't solve it all. No one of us can solve all of these problems or make everything better by ourselves. And it can feel so overwhelming that it's like almost paralyzing sometimes to see everything that's happening and think, what can we do? I think that we need to just think about if we can all take one small step every day to protect the things that we care about, to protect the values of our democracy, that is enough, and that will add up, and that is what's going to get us through this time. So we can't think about solving the whole problem. We just need to think about doing one thing each day that we can that's within our power to protect our democracy. I think that right now a really good focus is, maybe it's just because I'm focused on it, is Todd Blanche's upcoming confirmation. I have a post on my Substack where I've laid out who the senators are who might be most persuadable to vote against him. And there's a list of about 22 members of the Senate Judiciary Committee. If any one of them votes against Blanche, it would block his nomination from moving forward. So you could go through that list over the next 2 weeks and just make one call or send one email per day to one of the people on that list. And that will make a difference, because we just need to persuade one of those people not to vote, one of those Republicans. just to be clear, there are 12 Republicans on the committee. Only one of them has to vote against Blanche to block his nomination from going out of committee. And that's like a small thing that we could do each day that could potentially make a really big difference. So I would encourage people to focus on those small achievable things. And if we all do them, eventually we will succeed in protecting the things we care about, and we will get through this terrible moment in our country's history.